This is Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm Sofie Lindberg, your host and the Executive Director of Claim Your Potential. Get ready to embark on a transformative journey where we empower women and girls to unlock their full potential in every aspect of life. It's time to claim your potential and step into a life of empowerment. Tune in every Tuesday as we ignite your inner strength, provide actionable insights, and empower you to achieve greatness. So, are you ready to claim your potential? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Sofie, and for this episode, we are joined by Karen Walters to discuss servant leadership. Founder of Beyond Culture, Karen Walters has 30 years of human resources leadership experience and enjoys imparting wisdom gained via her career within the sports and entertainment, nonprofit, and IT industries. Karen coaches leaders, provides full-cycle human resources support, and facilitates leadership development, team effectiveness, and culture-building initiatives. Karen is prepared to tackle a wide variety of strategic human resources projects that span the entire employee lifecycle and include core values creation, organizational design, devising people strategies, and HR compliance audits. During her 19 career under the leadership of Arthur Blank, co-founder of Home Depot, Karen was on a small team devoted to staffing and onboarding thousands of new Mercedes-Benz Stadium associates. This award-winning core values-based initiative resulted in a highly engaged workforce, inspired to positively impact the lives of stadium fans. Please welcome Karen Walters. Thank you so much for being with us today, Karen.
Thank you, Sofie. I so appreciate the offer to come on with you.
It is such a pleasure to have you on. I would love to start our conversation with hearing a little bit about what servant leadership means to you and how it's influenced your career.
Oh, great. Thank you. So servant leadership, to me, what does that mean? It means that it's sort of breaking the mold of the traditional view of hierarchical leadership, I think. So when I was coming up in the business world, I just looked at it as, hey, there's an org chart in this company and there's somebody who's in charge, and that person is the person we should probably listen to. And this person is, the boss, that type of thing. I didn't really think much beyond that, but I've seen the power of flipping that model on its back. And instead of leading from the top, guiding from below, guiding from the bottom. And so the power of that is that it unleashes so much special talent and special giftings for the organization when people feel like, they're being supported from below.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that supported from below piece, because I did actually have more of a concept question for you. How do you balance being a servant leader while still maintaining the authority necessary for effective leadership?
That is actually getting to the heart of it. And I think that's what people often wonder, is like, it's sort of a fearful thing to say, hey, I'm going to just support everybody from the bottom of the organization. But I think what I would say is, I believe in any organization, and let's even take it out of the business realm, like this is true in a classroom. This is true on a sports team, the coach and the athletes, or it's even true in the home. Your question is very, very germane to the home, parents and children. That could be chaotic if there is no structure, there are no rules, that type of thing. So no, I think it's both. I think the leader of the home, the leader of the sports team, the leader of the classroom, the leader in business, they're all responsible for creating structure and order, and really kind of like guardrails. So when I say guardrails, like when you're driving down the highway and you see those metal guardrails that keep you on the road, that's the role of the leader as well, is to provide a safe place for people to thrive. And I noticed on your website, you've done an excellent job of creating some core values. I believe those are the guardrails in dozens and dozens of ways. They become the guardrails of a healthy organization, and it's the leader's responsibility to hold people to those and to model those. And so it is both. It is inspiring people, getting out of the way and cheering them on, allowing them to be their special selves, but to provide order, because nobody wants to work or be a part of something that's chaotic.
Oh, yeah, I could not agree more there. And yeah, I think those core values play such a huge role in not just, acting as a leader, but making sure that people feel that they have the knowledge that they need to act independently as well. And so I would love to hear a little bit about your experience when you led that highly engaged workforce at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Could you share some insights into how you cultivated a values-driven culture and the impact it had on the organization?
Okay, sure. Yeah, and again, kudos to you for having the wisdom, that obviously that you have, the insight that you have to lead with values. I think there's a tremendous power in that. If we could imagine the stadium that's empty with no employees in it, but having to staff it up very, very quickly, there was a team of us that approached that challenge of how do you attract and inspire and bring on board 4,000 employees into a stadium. And it's the core values that were fueling all of that. It's like, okay, who do we want to hire? Well, people that are living out these core values or have in the past. And then how do you onboard them? How do you inspire them? Well, it's experientially allowing people to get excited at the root of what's behind each of those core values. I think you'll probably appreciate this. We had some training sessions that were designed to be inspiring for all of these new hires in the stadium. And so we would do them, I don't know, let's say there was a hundred people at a time, and we did many, many of these inspirational onboarding trainings. When they walked into the room as new hires, they had their head down, their nose was in their phone. They were maybe a little bit shy because they didn't know their coworkers. And we sat them down at tables and we got it started. But through the course of this 4-hour training that we did, it was so experiential and so exciting and so kind of they could see that they had accepted a job that was so much bigger than what they fully understood at first, that we were unleashing them to go impact the lives of our fans. And we were treating them like they were the CEO, right? So we wanted them to feel like they are the CEO, not Arthur Blank. And the reason we wanted to do that is because we wanted them to take full ownership of every moment that they would encounter so that they can operate out of those core values. And we did some fun exercises so that they would know at the heart level what each of the core values means, not in the head, but in the heart, so that they could action out of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more there. I think that, really making sure that people understand those values and practice those values and that they're really a part of that organizational culture is so important when it comes to not just, developing as an organization, but also as you're practicing that servant leadership. And I know that sometimes servant leadership gets a bad reputation, especially at larger organizations, in the sense that leading from the bottom up, as you previously said, can be such a scary thing for larger organizations or organizations that have been practicing that traditional hierarchy for so long. And so how do you advocate for and promote the adoption of that servant leadership style in environments that might not initially embrace it?
Well, I don't think it's a forced thing because it's not for everyone, right? So I think it starts with some sort of a pain point. Organizations sometimes struggle with, of course, people are complicated, people are complex. So we can imagine some of the, oh, I'm not getting it, as much performance out of these folks, or people are leaving the company, or, whatever the pain point might be. Well, for me, it's about peeling back the onion and trying to understand what are the reasons for that pain point. And I don't know. I mean, 99.9 times out of 100, it's going to come back to really the operating system of the organization, meaning the whole people strategy. Is it built on kind of random concepts or reactive principles and practices, or could it be more strategic and values based? I think probably 100 times out of 100, there's a benefit to building a people strategy on something that's strategic and personal to that business. And so I think resistant leaders quickly become or can become excited and definitely not resistant once we've peeled back that onion and kind of explored these concepts and why they pay off.
Yeah, and I think something that throws kind of a bit of a monkey wrench into organizational culture and just leadership and servant leadership in organizational culture is the rise of remote work and virtual teams. And so, how do you adapt your servant leadership approach to accommodate the unique challenges and opportunities presented by a distributed workforce?
Right. So I think it requires leaders to be even more intentional, even more bought in, even more engaged, even more connected at a personal human level with the team. And so if you think about the concept of, we say leading by example, like that's a phrase that I think we toss around pretty often. So leading by example, I'll just throw out a couple examples of that. Does your walk match your talk? Are you saying things, but then doing something completely different? In a physical environment where everybody's together in an office, an example of that might be a leader walking past trash and not picking it up and putting it in the trash can because somebody else should do that. So people see that. Maybe the team has to stay till 2 a.m. and work late because of a project. Well, if the leader leaves at 5 p.m., people definitely see and feel that. So those are two examples where it's when everybody's together in a office environment. Okay, so what are some ways we can lead by example or walk the talk when people are working remotely? Well, I think you got to care an awful lot and you need to be super intentional. It scares me a little bit because we are all so busy and sometimes we move too fast. And the things that get thrown out that we don't take the time to do is to tell stories. And when I say tell stories, it's how a core value of living out a core value this week was super beneficial to the company and kind of reinforcing and building the culture on a daily basis. So I just say it's a little bit of an Olympic event each day for a leader to be a true culture builder and a leader by example when people are remote. I'm not saying it's a bad thing because it's a good thing. It can be an incredibly wonderful thing for people to work remotely. But I think the trick is being super intentional.
Absolutely. And as you were speaking, I was thinking to some of the examples with our own organization. We operate 100% fully remote. And there are definitely some pain points and learning curves with just trying to navigate building a team culture when no one is in office ever, and everyone is in different parts of the United States and on different time zones and in different spaces in their careers. And it makes it, very hard to build that organizational culture there. So absolutely, I couldn't agree more there as you were speaking to. It's almost like a marathon or an Olympic event every single day, just trying to ramp up. All right, we got to make sure that we are being extra intentional with the culture that we're trying to create, with that feeling of belonging in the workplace simply because of our structure. So definitely remote teams, virtual teams have it hard in that way. But as you said, the intentionality has to be there. And that makes it a whole lot easier when you're intentional about it and you can focus your attention to it. I'd love to shift gears here a little bit to young women professionals that are emerging leaders who might be interested in adopting a servant leadership approach. Do you have any advice to give to these young women who want to embrace this leadership style?
So for young women, I think servant leadership as a young person is a certain amount of humility. And I think it is, when in a traditional hierarchical organization, again, this could be in the classroom, within your friend group, anything, there's a certain amount of ego boost to be in charge. Say, hey, I'm in charge, I'm the project manager, I'm the leader, whatever it might be. But I think as I've matured in my career, I've realized that it's amazing to allow other people to have their own aha moment. And what I mean by that is, if you can see the light bulb above somebody's head, right, is not racing to tell somebody else the answer, but to allow them to arrive at a point where they're coming up with their own answer that they're going to remember forever. Letting go of that desire to be the smartest person in the room and the person with all the answers and, the whole one-upping people. I think that silent servant leadership, sometimes leading from below, encouraging others, celebrating others' successes, guiding people, inspiring people to a higher purpose, there's so much more meaning in that. And so I think as a young woman, finding opportunities to encourage others, because we need that in this world, to share inspirational stories and just take that journey of being an example of somebody that will put yourself last when it's hard. Like, you're going to be the person that parks far away or puts yourself last, lets other people go first, because it's an example that you're trying to set.
Yeah, there's an amazing book called Leaders Eat Last, and it's about that concept of servant leadership, where there's so much power in setting that example of, hey, I know I'm the leader, but you come first. Your needs come first. I have to make sure you're taken care of before I can take care of myself and what I should be doing. So I think there's a lot of power there. And I think that, funny enough, I was just talking to someone about this, how a lot of the time young women, when they get into those manager positions, those leadership positions, they tend to practice or mirror what they've previously learned from their own managers, or what managers have previously done, or how they've interacted with them. And a lot of the time, especially young women who've been in more intern roles or, associate roles, where a lot of the time you're kind of just there to get projects done and tasks done, and you're less incorporated into organizational culture, they find it very hard to be a manager and to lead and to adjust, because it's almost like they want to mirror that. I got to just assign projects because that's what I've been taught to do from my manager. That's how my manager interacted with me. And so I feel like a lot of it, is leading by example. Do you have any perhaps tools, resources, or just any way that some of these young women can educate themselves on, how to break that cycle and really develop their own leadership style?
I love that. Probably follow your organization because it seems like you have a lot of tools and resources and courses. So kudos to you on that. But I think in the bigger picture, I wish I would have known this when I was much younger, is that difference. And I think what you're getting at is the difference between managing and leading. Managing is really just making sure that tasks get completed, and it's important. We need that in every facet of our life to make sure that tasks are getting completed. But when we talk about leadership, it's really taking that self-inventory from time to time and saying, okay, to what degree am I leading? When I define that myself, I look at that and I think, okay, it means that people have chosen me as somebody that they want to follow because of my example. And so I can't really even call myself a leader. It's other people label me that. And so if I look behind me and I see people following, then I know I'm a leader, but I don't think I can call myself that. So it's seeing the bigger purpose in all the people that are around you, and helping people to maybe discover what the bigger purpose is of their role. I don't care what your job is or what you call yourself, what you're engaged in. There is a bigger purpose to every single task out there, every job out there. And so I think we can impact the world when we allow people to get inspired by a bigger purpose day to day. And it is that quote of, people won't remember what you told them, they'll remember how you made them feel. And I think servant leadership is all about inspiring people to step into a bigger purpose.
Absolutely. It's about providing that bigger context as to what's going on, why people are there, why what they're doing is important. Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. I think that that's a piece that's missing from a lot of organizations, and especially organizations that I've been in, is providing that context to people. I'd love to tie everything together with what is one thing that our listeners should take away?
Yes, I think it's that issue of self-inventory. We live in a fast world. We've put a lot of things on our plate. I think for each of us, that daily self-inventory, and it's like, okay, what does inspiring people even mean? Maybe ask yourself periodically, who am I inspired by? And why am I inspired by that person? And then who's in my circle that I would love to inspire, because the impact would be so great if I could inspire this person. And then what might that look like? So I think pausing and doing some self-inventory on the impact that we're having on others, and then being an incredible listener, asking good questions and being a great listener. Because the one advantage that we haven't talked about of servant leadership is just, boy, the ideas and the observations and the suggestions that will come to you when you're a good listener and when you empower people on the front line to come back to you with suggestions. Wow, that just makes your role so much easier, because you're like, okay, that's a good observation. That's a good idea. What do you think about that? It's not only one person being in charge. It's everybody feeling ownership and coming up with their own ideas. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that last piece of wisdom there. And for our listeners that would like to connect with you to hear even more of your wisdom, where can our listeners get in touch with you?
My website is KarenWalters.com. My email is info@KarenWalters.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Karen Walters. So pretty easy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that a lot of our listeners will probably be checking out your LinkedIn, going over to your website. I think servant leadership is one of those podcast topics I don't see too often. So it's always super fun to do a topic that I'm passionate about, that I love, and be able to share that with everyone, especially one that is definitely a little under the radar, which is sad to say, but I think servant leadership is fantastic. And I want to say thank you again so much for coming on to the podcast, Karen. You've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you share.
No, thank you. Keep up the good work. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
That brings us to the end of another empowering episode on Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed our show and want to learn more about the work we do, you can visit our website, claimyourpotential.org. There, you can access our tools and workbooks, sign up for workshops, join our mentorship program, listen to previous and future episodes, donate to support our cause, and find out how you can get involved. For even more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Claim Potential, where we share inspiration, educational resources, episode and program announcements, and other content designed to help you reach your full potential. Your support means the world to us, and a free way to support our show is by leaving a rating and review on the podcast streaming platform of your choice. Your feedback helps us grow and reach even more people with our empowering message. If you're unsure of how to do this, head over to our website's Leave a Review page for step-by-step instructions. Thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of this empowering community. Tune in next time as we continue our journey of learning and discover even more ways to claim your potential. Until then, remember that you have the power to create the life you desire. Keep striving and keep growing.